Hello and welcome to the Under Center Pod. I am not your usual host, Dara Marr. Today, I am Jake Woolhead. We are joined by two of the three blind mice, Fionn Malloy and Dara Marr. How are we doing today?
Pretty good. You're only Jake Woolhead today, or today you are Jake Woolhead?
Well, it's Tuesday today. It's what it is. Dara, how are you doing?
Not too bad. You wish you were your Dara Marr this week.
Whoa!
With a beard like that, Dara, I always wish I'm you. Today, we are joined by CJ DeSimone by Weapons Hot, the New York Jets fan broadcast. How are you doing today, CJ?
Doing great, guys. How are you guys doing?
We're doing
fantastic.
Great. Thanks for coming on the show, man. Really appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me. Let me tell you, whenever I get to collaborate with other shows, kind of spread the word about our little broadcast over here in the States. And, you know, not only that, but give you guys a little bit of exposure too. So that way we can turn people on to your show. It works out. It's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. And we look forward to talking to you today. As we're saying, we're talking about the New York Jets. However tumultuous their last season where it was. But if you're watching this on YouTube, could you like and subscribe to our videos? You'll find it on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Now, CJ, we'll just kick right into it. The 2020 season, not an ideal season for, by all accounts, for Jets fans. How did it go for you in terms of wins, losses, coaching, the whole lot?
Well, you know, a 2-14 record is basically, you know, nothing short of disappointing, especially going into this season where we expected under head coach Adam Gase for, you know, not only for this team to take a step forward, but also to kind of establish a little bit of relevancy within the AFC East. Needless to say, that didn't happen. Adam Gase got fired, in my opinion, way too late. They should have fired him, believe it or not, probably after game 4 of the season. So during the course of the season, Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator, ends up getting fired after the Raiders game, in which I wrote an article that I felt that the Jets had fired the wrong guy. So nevertheless, fast forward to this offseason, Adam Gase is gone, Greg Williams is gone, pretty much everybody from Gase's coaching staff. I mean, they have been removed from the building, thank goodness. I think the only thing they didn't do was burn the stadium to the ground just as a cleansing, ritual, just to make sure that whatever, bad juju he left in the building is gone with him too.
Yeah, that's just because the Giants would have complained.
Yeah, CJ, I am a Giants fan. And just so you know, my girlfriend is a huge Jets fan, and she just messaged me saying, Jets, 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 Jets. That was the first game we had gone to see while we were in New York at that time. A little tidbit. So, yeah, Adam Gase, obviously, terrible coach, terrible hire. What did you think at the time?
Well, Adam Gase was not the guy that I wanted to be head coach. I mean, originally the Jets had Matt LaFleur in. They wanted to pick his staff for him, and he was just like, "No, I want to pick my own staff if I'm going to take this job." Another person I wish they would have interviewed was Todd Monken, who at that time was the offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't even think that they even got around to interviewing him. But unfortunately, the New York Jets just have this tremendous lack of persona, so to speak, of actually doing things correctly. So, and what I mean by that is, if you go and take a look at under the pretenses where Adam Gase was hired. Adam Gase was hired by Mike McCagnon, who was allowed to spend over $150 million in cap space, go through their entire NFL draft for that season 3 years ago, or actually 2 years ago, I'm sorry, and subsequently was fired after the draft. And I think pretty much the only good thing that came out of Adam Gase being hired as head coach was the fact that the Jets now have general manager Joe Douglas, who cut his teeth underneath both Ozzie Newsome and also within the Philadelphia Eagles, and has 3 Super Bowl rings to show for his trouble. So from where I sit, that's pretty much the only good thing that came out of the Adam Gase hire. So that being said, I'm very much looking forward to the rest of this offseason, looking forward to the draft. excited about the Robert Saleh hire, which I know you guys are going to talk about next, and just what the future of New York Jets football is going to look like from this point on.
Yeah, it's a pretty good segue to bring us into Saleh, for instance, one bad coach to hopefully a coach that will be with you a long time. How do you feel? Was that the guy you wanted during the hiring process?
Robert Saleh was one of a couple of people that I had my eye on. Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator for Carolina Panthers, was also somebody that I looked at. A lot of people were kicking around Jim Harbaugh's name. I was very high on Eric Bieniemy, Chiefs offensive coordinator, and the Jets actually interviewed Bieniemy and really didn't have a good interview with Joe Douglas. And you know, one of the things that I liked about the Jets head coaching hire this season was the fact that they really took their time with it. And Joe Douglas left no stone unturned. He took his time. He made sure that he had several different interviews with different candidates. I think Robert Saleh had like 3 different interviews before he was officially pegged as the head man for the New York Jets. And mind you, Saleh was ready to be nailed with 2 other jobs. So he had interviewed, I think, with the Washington football team as a potential head coach before they decided to hang on to Ron Rivera. And I believe another place that he was looked at, I think he was looked at in Denver. So there were quite a few places that he was looked at and he was under consideration. So in my opinion, Jets got their man.
Yeah, we were all very high on Robert Saleh in our offseason review of the coaches.
Yeah. He's a high energy guy, brings a lot of passion, also brings a lot of football knowledge to the table. And, you know, for him being a first-time head coach, sure, there's going to be some growing pains and there's going to be some things that he may have to end up learning on the job. But, I mean, just the fact that his defense made it to a Super Bowl under Kyle Shanahan. He was with the 49ers. They had a very good, very powerful, very attack-like defense. And, you know, they made teams' lives miserable that they played. So if the Jets can again improve upon their defense, and it just seems like the Jets' defense is not really the problem on this team. The problem is their offense. So him bringing Michael Flohr over, which is Carolina Panthers, Green Bay Packers younger brother over to run the offense. And he runs an offense very, very similar to Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the players that we have here, the addition of Corey Smith, the addition of Keelan Cole, Denzel Mims going into his sophomore year. Hopefully he'll be healthy. They retain Jamison Crowder. They retain Vincent Smith. It's going to be really interesting to see how all of these pieces get put together within this offense to see how it performs. But still a big sticking point. Any Jets fan knows this. The offensive line, which has been criminally neglected over the past decade, needs to be addressed. So that's something that I'm hoping that will be addressed in this upcoming draft.
Yeah, and CJ, I want to ask you about the offense. Like you're saying, Michael LaFleur is going to be the offensive coordinator. He's coming from the 49ers as well as Robert Saleh, and you would guess that they're going to play a similar offense to the one that we see in San Francisco. Their offense is very running back based, very run heavy, a lot of play action. Now, we'll get into the quarterback talking a little bit, but I want to talk a little bit about the running back side of things because you do have Le'Veon Bell at the moment, and a lot of the free agent signings have been based on wide receivers. But I'm guessing if not in free agency, we'll look at the draft to see the running back situation not resolved, but looked at.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, right now, you know, the Jets went out and signed Tevin Coleman. And they've already got a pretty stacked running back room with Ty Johnson, with Josh Adams, with LaMichael Pirine. LaMichael Pirine is someone I'm very high on. I know not a lot of Jet fans are very high on him just because where he comes from, which is the University of Florida, and some University of Florida players in the NFL just really don't translate well. But I think that LaMichael Pirine in this offense will actually cater to his strengths, considering that the offense that Michael LaFleur runs is something similar to what Dan Mullen ran at the University of Florida, what he still continues to run at the University of Florida. So I think that, hopefully Michael Pirine will be able to really, shine in his sophomore season and really make a name for himself in the NFL. That being said, I still expect the New York Jets to address the running back position a little bit more. Don't be surprised if they end up drafting one in the later rounds. So I know a lot of people were talking about drafting Najee Harris if he's there at 23. That's not a guy that I would go after. I want to plug and play center. I have my eyes on Creed Humphrey with the number 23 pick. And I'm hoping that not only do we include Zach Wilson at number 2, but also get him, his center and an anchor for the offensive line for the next decade in Creed Humphrey.
You mentioned the draft, so let's just get up to the runnings up to the draft, okay? So obviously there seemed to be a bit of a tank job last year for the New York Jets where they were vying for the number 1 draft pick. But when you came up against the Rams, you could obviously not lose that game for some reason. Obviously, were you hoping that you would lose all the games, get that number 1 pick, or where did you stand on it? It's nice to see your team win football games, but when you got Trevor Lawrence or Zach Wilson, who would you pick?
Well, to me, to be honest with you, I know that a lot of fans last year. I apologize for the background noise. We got a heavy rainstorm here on the highway. So one of the things with last year, I know a lot of fans were rooting for the tank. I really was just frustrated overall with the way that the team played because I feel like the team clicked, and I kind of criticized the Johnsons, Chris Johnson in particular, for just not firing Adam Gase sooner. And I know that a lot of people are like, no, keep Adam Gase till the end of the year. He's our best chance at getting Trevor Lawrence. And with the Jets winning the Rams game, I know a lot of people were upset, but I don't think anybody looks for their team to actually lose games, regardless of what's going on for the season. So it was okay to see them win where they finally broke through, but in a way, the victory was bittersweet because Jet fans were kind of thinking like, okay, if we keep pace with Jacksonville, because of the tiebreaker, we would get the first overall pick and Trevor Lawrence. So I'm going to be honest, I really wasn't on that bandwagon. I was more frustrated with the way that the Jets played because we really did not see competitive football last year, or even watchable football, which was really frustrating.
Yeah, definitely. Now, if we move on to the draft, obviously you got the number 2 pick, you got the 23 pick in the first round. Who are you hoping? Obviously, there's a lot of people saying Zach Wilson. Are you a Zach Wilson fan yourself?
To be honest with you, if you go and take a look between Zach Wilson and Justin Fields, it's actually like splitting hairs. I actually went on a podcast not too long ago called the Thomas Take Podcast with Mr. Ryan Thomas. He's a Buffalo Bills fan and also covers the AFC East in its entirety. And I had said to him that I just felt like there were really good qualities about Justin Fields, and there were really good qualities about Zach Wilson. And it all basically depends on which guy do you draft that you think is a better fit for your offensive system that you're playing. So, and many times we've seen the New York Jets franchise try to jam the square peg in the round hole. And I think that we learned our lesson with the drafting of Sam Darnold because we failed Sam when we drafted him. We drafted him into a toxic situation, but also, unfortunately, Sam did not really do anything himself in the 3 years that he was here to kind of force the issue that he could still be the guy on a center for the New York Jets. So I think it was a mutual parting of the ways there that was much, much needed on both ends. Now,
go ahead.
So that being said, to me, I like Zach Wilson. I think that Zach Wilson fits this offense better, and I think he can be a day one starter provided we get this offensive line where we need it to be. So there's going to be growing pains. There's going to be a learning curve. And really the biggest thing, which is there's one word that is not in a Jets fan's vocabulary, which is the word patience. And that's what I think is going to be needed with young Zach Wilson when he gets selected with number two overall.
Yeah, it's interesting. Now, obviously, you had the number 2 pick, and a couple of weeks ago, Sam Darnold was shipped off to the Carolina Panthers. How did you feel about that? Did you want to keep Darnold and draft some brilliant player at number 2 and then 23, or were you happy to send him off, get the picks back, and rebuild the franchise?
It's unfortunate that I would have liked to see Sam succeed here, but we did not see enough from Sam Darnold or Joe Douglas to make an educated decision, or even the coaching staff to make an educated decision that to roll with Sam for one more year when you have a good quarterback class coming out this year. So that being said, I was happy that Sam's going to get an opportunity to go someplace else. To Carolina, he's going to compete for a starting job and be a quarterback in the NFL. But for the Jets, that's going to just cut bait, cut ties. Things didn't work out. If we're really going to rebuild it, strip it down to the studs. The difference between the New York Jets and other teams is that other teams have competitive sustainability. They're able to be competitive year in and year out, regardless of retooling or losing big-time free agents because of solid drafting in their front offices, and they make smart financial decisions, which helps their team remain competitive. And that's what the Jets are trying to attain. And I think that's what Joe Douglas is trying to attain, because he saw it done under Ozzie Newsome in Baltimore. And now, even though Ozzie Newsome is no longer there and they have a new GM there, they've still kind of hold true to the Ozzie Newsome model, which is, develop your draft picks, draft tier 1, tier 2 guys, even tier 3 guys that you can go and build, and then keep your franchise sustainable.
CJ, a quick question. Obviously, you've got your quarterback and your center will be the ideal picks in the first round. It seems like a pretty strong draft for offensive linemen in general. Probably hope to pick up a couple in rounds 2 and 3. You also mentioned at the start the running back room you're pretty happy with. You've also got a couple of wide receivers that are certainly have potential. In your opinion, are you expecting as a fan a dramatic turnaround this season, or do you think it's going to be a process 2 or 3 years? And maybe speak to not only just your opinion, but what's the general consensus of the Jets fan base as well?
Well, it depends on what day you ask the Jets fan base. I'm going to be honest with you, because you still have a lot of Jet fans that are still incredibly pessimistic, claim that they think that the team is going to stink again this year, regardless, that we're going to repeat the same mistakes of the past. We're not going to develop our quarterback. We're not going to rebuild the offensive line, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that being said, there are the other portion of the Jet fan base, which is kind of a little bit optimistic. Now, I'm not talking about the green and white goggle wearing ones with the pom-poms who think the Jets are going to win the Super Bowl this year. And believe me, there's plenty of those. Okay. But if you talk to some optimistic Jet fans, they think that the team is not as far off as people think, and they think that a lot of it has to do with coaching, and they kind of have good reason to feel that way. Now, I'll give you a couple of examples really quick. Take a look at when Eric Mangini was let go, and then they hired Rex Ryan. Now, with pretty much just a couple of free agents being brought in, now that Rex Ryan was head coach, and drafting Mark Sanchez, the Jets finished 9-7, made a deep run in the playoffs, and made it to the AFC Championship game, and basically came within 30 minutes of going to the Super Bowl that year. Okay? Now we go to the next season. Okay? A couple of more free agent acquisitions, etc. Jets make it to another AFC Championship game after going 11-5. Okay? Now, this is just from minor tweaks with the lineup and a changing of the voice in the locker room. Okay? If you want to go even further back with that, take a look at 1997, the New York Jets, when Bill Parcells was the head coach, and he was there for his first year. The previous year, the Jets under Rich Kotite finished 1-15. Without making any major changes to the lineup, the Jets went from 1-15 to 9-7 and almost on the verge of making the playoffs. Okay? And that's in Bill Parcells' first year. So it is possible. It is possible. Now, that being said, going into this season, unfortunately, I don't have the Jets schedule up in front of me, but if I had to put a realistic expectation, I could realistically see this team winning between 6 and 7 games and being competitive.
Yeah, just for anyone that doesn't know the schedule, the divisions next season are the NFC South, and you're looking at the AFC South as well. So, Tennessee, Houston, Jacksonville, Indianapolis, and then obviously on the NFC side, you've got the Panthers, the Buccaneers, the Saints, and the Panthers. But can I ask just about the AFC in general, CJ, because you were mentioning about sort of previous regimes and how close the Jets came to a Super Bowl. The AFC, for me particularly, seems to be probably the hardest division to make the Super Bowl in, just because of the sheer quality of quarterbacks in the conference, with the likes of Patrick Mahomes. Now, obviously, there's still question marks over Deshaun Watson, but he's still a fantastic player. We don't even know if he'll stay in the conference or if he'll be able to play. Josh Allen. There's so many great quarterbacks, and I say it's so tough to get to progress in the playoffs. And I guess for the Jets as well, I want to ask, it would be really difficult for them to make the playoffs, considering just the other teams in their division. New England have obviously made all their free agent signings, and anytime Bill Belichick is still going to be in charge of the team, they're always going to be dangerous. The Bills have got a really strong side there with Josh Allen getting better year on year. And yes, there's still questions about Tua with the Dolphins, but the team that Coach Flores is getting together there definitely seems like one that will challenge for a division as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Bills right now are the team to beat in the AFC. All right, and they're a hard team in the AFC. Let me rephrase that. They're going to be a very hard team to contend with within the AFC. Within the AFC East, they are the top dog. They are the AFC East champions. They won their division title last year. Okay. The Patriots are looking for a rebound. I still have major question marks in regards to the Patriots. And also when it comes to Cam Newton, because even though they finished 7-9, I still think that 7-9, they potentially probably should have finished worse. But I digress. The Dolphins finishing at 10-6, I expect them to have another solid season in which they are going to be competitive. So the Jets have some tough competition in front of them, and the AFC East is primed to become one of the toughest, if not the toughest division in the NFL, not just this upcoming year, but for years to come.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a tough division to play in. It was a tough division having Tom Brady and Bill Belichick for a long time now. And the AFC East is just going to get stronger with Josh Allen. So it's hard to go from quarterback that is obviously a Hall of Fame to a quarterback that could be a Hall of Fame. So hopefully the Jets can get their draft together. They can get a strong team and maybe push for an AFC championship. What you personally, for Saleh's first year, what do you hope for?
What I want to see from Robert Saleh is I want to see competitive football. I want to see 60 minutes of high energy, high impact, competitive football. And that's really all I can ask for, because you have a team, unfortunately, that has to learn how to win all over again. So you need to learn how to play with a lead. You need to learn how to sustain a lead. You need to know how to come from behind. And most of all, your offense needs to know how to put points on the board. One of the biggest problems with the New York Jets that has been their biggest bugaboo for the past decade has been their defense is responsible for playing 60 to almost 80% of the game on the field. You want an offense that can grind the opposing team's defense into the ground, let your defense be fresh and ready to go for the fourth quarter, because if it's a 3-point game, if it's a 6-point game, if it's a 5-point game, you need your defense ready to go to make that critical stop in the fourth quarter to give your offense an opportunity to win the game. And that's what I want to see. I want to see, more importantly than just wins and losses, I want to see competitive football. Give me something to be excited about for the future, not the garbage that we've had to watch for the past decade plus. And I know if there are any Jet fans in this panel, they know exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, there's no Jets fan, but there is a Washington fan, and we had something similar for the last few years. We've been a little bit hard to watch. Last season was a little bit better, but the couple of seasons before that, it's been pretty miserable. So I feel your pain, CJ, and I appreciate your passion. And I was nodding along as you were saying that. I was like, yeah. Sometimes when you're at that level, it's not about the wins and the losses. It's just about feeling like you're in the game and not getting whitewashed every single week.
Exactly, because we watched the team last year lose the majority of the games by double digits, and it wasn't even funny. There were times where the Jets last year were completely unwatchable. So when New York Jet fans deserve better. We want better. We've spoken up. Joe Douglas, the onus is on Joe Douglas to deliver, and he's got a lot to prove. And he's got the resources. He's got a lot of draft picks. He's got a lot of capital in which, the turnaround may not take as long as people think, provided you hit on these picks. So, this is all it's all on Joe Douglas now, and it's all going to be, on Robert Saleh come training camp and OTAs and mini camps. And the only thing that stinks is that now they're going back to doing stuff virtually. For the first part of the offseason, which I'm not really too happy about. But, I want to see mini camps. I want to see these guys, meet each other face to face, be able to work with their coaches, be able to work with their positional coaches, have time to play and to learn and to grow together, because that's the only way this team's going to be competitive, is getting everybody in, being able to work with their position coaches, their position groups, and go out there and work on their timing.
Yeah, definitely. I think we can all agree on having that. Being competitive in games, it's always been a huge one. The three of us had an off-season of new coaching hires. We had a podcast, and we said who our favorites were. I think the three of us, the top two, were Eric Bieniemy and Robert Saleh. So hopefully he is the guy that can turn the Jets around and be the guy to get you competitive in games. And I'm really liking what Joe Douglas has done so far in the Jets. I have far too much exposure to the Jets, as my girlfriend's a fan. So that's where I am now. I think that's just probably all that we should talk about at the minute. Now, CJ, where can we find you, your podcast? Where can we follow you?
You guys can follow us on Twitter at CNC Jets Factor. You can follow me at JetsFan0523. My partners in crime, Mr. Kevin Jackson at Spotty Blackman, Jimmy the Reaper Jardine at Jets by Jimmy, and Harris, our rookie test pilot, Harrison the Fireball Glazer at NY Jets TF Media. So also you can find Weapons Hot every Friday night at 7 p.m. on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. You can catch us on YouTube. Weapons Hot has a YouTube channel, so be sure to like and subscribe. Every couple of weeks, we have a show that we do exclusively on YouTube called Weapons Hot After Dark, which is a completely uncensored, unfiltered fans' point of view and outlook on the New York Jets and what's going on with that. Always entertaining. So by all means, like and subscribe, hit us up. We love going back and forth with fans about this team. And even if our opinions don't agree, we still respect everybody's opinion, and we get, everybody's comments, no matter how bizarre they may be, on the air. So that way, everyone has an opportunity to interact with us. So hopefully, if you guys are able to, on a Friday night, Eastern Standard Time, you guys are able to join us, we would very much love to return the favor and have you guys join us on the panel.
Yeah, for sure. I think all of us would love to come on the show.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
CJ, it was brilliant having you on the show. You know so much about the Jets. We really appreciate you coming on. And for fans of our podcast, you can find us on the Dynamo Podcast Network on YouTube, on Spotify. You can find us on Twitter, on the Under Center Pod, on Facebook at the same name. You got Instagram, TikTok. We got it all. You can find us everywhere. Thanks, Fionn. Thanks, Dara.
Thanks, Jake.
Thanks, CJ.
All right. Thanks for having me on, guys. Be safe.